I don't expect anyone to believe what I'm about to say. Hell, if it hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't believe it either. My name is Tyler. I'm from a small town in Nebraska, and 2 years ago, I was part of a foreign exchange program that sent me to Romania. It sounded like an adventure. Old castles, foggy mountains, mysterious ruins. I wanted something different. I got more than I ever imagined. They placed me in a rural high school nestled deep in the Carpathian Mountains. It was quiet, isolated, surrounded by thick woods and an eerie silence I never got used to. The school building was strange. Part of it was modern, but the back half was connected to an old monastery. The kind with stone walls, crumbling statues, and a chapel that hadn't seen prayer in decades. I asked why no one ever used the monastery side. They said, because that part of the school isn't ours. But the doors were still there, and they were never locked. Then, the whispers started. At night. Through the walls. This isn't a ghost story. It's worse than that. Because what took my classmates wasn't dead. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, what country and city are you watching this from? And keep the lights on. This story doesn't let go.
When I first stepped off the bus, the air smelled like wet stone and pine needles. It was colder than I expected. Not winter cold, but that damp mountain chill that crawls under your clothes and settles in your bones. A thick fog rolled through the narrow dirt road behind me, swallowing up the sound of the bus as it pulled away, leaving nothing but silence. Real silence. Not even birds. The village of Sapunza looked like something out of a fairy tale. The kind with witches, not princesses. Crooked wooden houses lined the hills, their roofs steep and moss-covered. Elderly women wearing headscarves watched me from their porches with suspicion, like they could already tell I didn't belong. I didn't speak Romanian. Not really. Just the basics I picked up from Duolingo and the orientation packet. Still, I smiled and waved like an idiot, dragging my suitcase behind me. A man in a greatcoat was waiting by a rusted Dacia, holding a cardboard sign that read, Tyler Reynolds. "Salut," he said. "You are Tyler, yes?" "Yeah, that's me." He didn't introduce himself, just took my bag, threw it in the trunk, and motioned for me to get in. As we drove, he didn't say much. He kept glancing at me in the mirror like he wanted to say something, or warn me. I stared out the window, trying to absorb everything. The mountains loomed higher the farther we went. The trees got thicker, the roads narrower. We passed a field full of wooden crosses. Some had names, others didn't. "Graveyard?" I asked. He didn't answer. We arrived at the school as the sun dipped behind the peaks. It was bigger than I expected. The main building was made of pale yellow stone, maybe 60 or 70 years old, but still in decent shape. Newer sections had been added in concrete and steel, painted white, but already weather-stained. It looked like any average high school except for the massive, crumbling structure looming behind it, the monastery. It stood like a scar on the landscape, blackened by time. Tall, narrow windows, a collapsed bell tower, and carved into the stone above the archway was a phrase I didn't understand. Domnul a tăcut aici. I made a mental note to look it up later. Inside the school, I met Professor Andre, the English teacher, and my liaison. "You'll be staying with the Mihailescu family," he said, handing me a paper map of the village. "They live just 5 minutes from here. We expect good behavior, punctuality, and respect. Understand?" "Yes, sir." He nodded. His face was hard to read, worn and tired, but his eyes flicked toward the monastery as he spoke. "One more thing," he added. "You are not to go beyond the chapel doors. The monastery is not safe. It's unstable." "Structurally?" He hesitated. "Yes, structurally." The Mihailescus were kind but quiet. Mr. Mihailescu worked at the sawmill. His wife stayed home. Their daughter, Irina, was in my grade, a sharp, curious girl with a shy smile and fluent English. She helped me settle in, showed me where to buy food, how to say excuse me without sounding like I was choking, and which trails behind the school not to hike alone. "Why not those trails?" I asked. She shrugged. "Wolves, bears, superstitions? Take your pick." At dinner that night, her father asked me if I believed in spirits. Not ghosts, spirits. "I don't know," I said, trying to be polite. "I guess I believe in energy? Like maybe bad things leave something behind?" He leaned in. "Here, old things live under the earth. Old gods, old hunger. They do not forget." Then he smiled and offered me more stew, like he hadn't just said something that sounded straight out of a horror movie. The first week of classes was uneventful. Strange, but uneventful. My classmates were polite, though distant. Some stared, a few whispered behind my back in Romanian. I caught the word strain more than once. Stranger. Irina stuck close, making sure I didn't sit in someone's usual spot or accidentally offend someone's grandmother. One afternoon during break, she pointed at the back of the school and said, "Don't go there alone, ever." "Why?" She paused and said, "Because the shadows there move, even when the wind doesn't." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She didn't laugh back. That night, I stayed late working on a group project in the computer lab. By the time I packed up, the sun had vanished and the hallways were nearly empty. I was walking past the central corridor when I heard it. A whisper. So soft I thought I imagined it. It came from the hallway that led toward the monastery wing, the part they told me was closed off. No lights, just cold air and darkness. I should have left. I should have kept walking. But I froze. Another whisper. Louder this time. "Tyler." I spun around. Nothing. The hallway was empty, but the door to the monastery wing, the one that was supposed to be locked, was open just a crack. I took one step toward it. The air changed. Colder, thicker. My breath fogged. Something moved inside the darkness. A shape, a flicker, like someone just stepped around the corner, but I couldn't see anyone. Then, a loud bang echoed behind me, a locker slamming shut. I jumped, spun, heart hammering, but no one was there. When I looked back, the door was closed, tightly. The next morning, I asked Professor Andre about it. He grew pale, visibly. "You must not speak of that wing, not to the students, not to anyone." "But someone was in there. I heard my name." He stared at me, his eyes wide. "You heard your name?" "Yes." He didn't speak for a moment. Then, quietly, he said, "If you hear your name in the dark, never answer. That voice is not yours to follow." I pressed him for more, but he just walked away. That day, I noticed something else. A girl named Anka didn't come to class. Irina leaned over and whispered, "She's gone." "Gone where?" She looked around, then lowered her voice. "She left school yesterday after lunch, said she wasn't feeling well. She never made it home." "Did anyone call the police?" "They did, but they won't go near the monastery, not since..." She stopped herself. "Since what?" I asked. Irina didn't answer. That night I dreamed of stairs leading down into the earth. Stone stairs, slick with water, descending forever. I heard voices, children crying, an organ playing in reverse, something breathing, slow and loud, like it was right behind me. When I turned, I saw a figure in the darkness. It wore a monk's robe, but its face was missing. just smooth skin where eyes and a mouth should be. It raised one hand and pointed at me. I woke up screaming. In the morning, I found a note under my pillow. Old paper, handwritten in ink. No one in the house claimed they put it there. It read, "Do not look into the chapel mirror. What looks back is not always your reflection."
The note haunted me all day. I kept checking my backpack, my notebook, even my coat pockets. How did it get under my pillow? Who wrote it? More importantly, how did they get into my room? The Mihaileskos said they hadn't entered. Irina swore she didn't leave me anything. When I showed it to her at lunch, she went pale. "That handwriting," she whispered, "it's like the old priest's journals. We saw them during history class last year. The ink, the phrasing, it looks the same." My skin prickled. "What mirror is it talking about?" I asked. She hesitated, then leaned in. "There's one in the monastery's chapel, behind the pulpit. It's huge, black glass, covered by a red velvet cloth. Nobody's allowed near it. People say if you look into it long enough, it looks back." I tried to laugh, but my voice cracked. That afternoon, the school was quieter than usual. Anka was still missing. Her name stayed on the attendance sheet, untouched. The teachers pretended everything was fine, but the mood had shifted. Heavier, like the building was holding its breath. During break, I noticed something strange. The door to the monastery wing, the one that had slammed shut before, was open again. Not wide, just enough. This time, there was no sound, no whisper, just stillness. I stared at it for too long, I think. Long enough for the hallway to go empty around me. Long enough for the sounds of other students faded, like the world narrowed down to me and that door. I should have walked away, but curiosity isn't safe in places like that. I stepped toward the door. The air chilled, the light dimmed. Every sound seemed distant. Inside, the hallway was lined with cracked plaster and ancient sconces. The scent of mildew and candle wax filled my nose. Each step echoed. It felt like stepping back in time. I passed an arched window with stained glass long since shattered. The walls were carved with Latin verses, many scratched out violently. Then I saw it, the chapel. The doors were heavy oak, partially open. Inside, everything was bathed in gray dust. And there it was, the mirror. It stood behind the altar, nearly 7 feet tall, framed in tarnished gold. A red cloth hung loosely over it, not quite covering the corners. The air felt wrong, like something ancient had just stirred. I approached slowly, each step heavier than the last. I told myself I wouldn't touch it, just look. But when I reached the base, the cloth slid down. On its own. The glass was black. Not a reflection, more like a pool of still water at night. Then I saw myself, but it wasn't me. My reflection blinked before I did. Its eyes were too dark, too wide. Its mouth curved upward. I stepped back, heart racing. And then the chapel doors slammed shut behind me. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until I burst into the main building, breathless and sweating. No one noticed. Classes had resumed. The world kept turning. But something had changed. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that version of me in the mirror, smiling, but not with my mouth. At 3:17 a.m., I woke up to a sound. Tapping. Soft, rhythmic tapping against the window. I pulled back the curtain slowly. No one was there. Then I looked again. A single handprint was pressed against the outside of the glass. Too large for Irina. Too pale. No footsteps in the snow below it. Just the handprint and a faint trail of blood running down the glass. The next morning, there was a substitute teacher in our first class. Professor Andre was absent. I asked Irina about it. She leaned in and whispered, "He lives alone. The neighbors said they heard screaming last night. When they checked, his door was wide open. He was gone. No blood, no struggle, just gone." Another one. Just like Anka. Irina bit her lip. "That's two." During lunch, I made a decision. Stupid, I know, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror had something to do with it. So I went to the school library, a dim, ancient room that smelled like mothballs and secrets. I searched the archives for anything about the monastery. Most of the folders were in Romanian, but a few had English summaries. Then I found it, a photocopy of a newspaper article from 1971. Fifth student found dead inside the monastery chapel. Officials blame structural collapse. Locals disagree. I read the details slowly. 5 students, over 2 weeks, all vanished during school hours. All last seen near the chapel. All believed to have entered voluntarily. One boy, the last victim, was found. His body lay in front of the mirror, eyes burned out, mouth wide open. Carved in his chest was a single word, "Asculta," Romanian for listen. I took a photo of the article with my phone. As I did, something flickered across the screen. For a split second, in the reflection of the glass case behind me, I saw it again. My reflection, the wrong one, smiling. That evening, Irina came to my room in a panic. "You need to see something," she said, eyes wide. She led me behind the school to the base of the monastery wall. There, in the snow, were footprints, small, barefoot, leading up to the wall and ending. No return prints, no sign of climbing, just vanished. "I saw her," Irina whispered. "Last night, outside my window. She was mouthing something." "What did she say?" Irina's voice trembled. "I think she said, 'Don't follow your voice.'" That night, the dream returned. The staircase, the breathing, the robed figure. But this time, I didn't run. I asked it, "What do you want?" It didn't speak. It just turned and pointed to the mirror. I woke up to a voice whispering my name, not outside, inside the room. I turned on the lamp. The mirror above my desk, a cheap plastic one I used to comb my hair, was fogged, and written in the fog, as if from a finger, were 2 words: 7 days. I stared at the words on my mirror until the fog cleared. 7 days. My breath was shaking. The room was quiet, too quiet. The Mihainescus were asleep down the hall, their doors closed. No windows open, no condensation, no logical way those words could have appeared. Unless something had been in the room with me, watching, writing. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat in bed, knees pulled to my chest, the light on, clutching my phone like a crucifix. In the morning, I felt sick. Not physically, mentally, spiritually even. The kind of nausea that comes when your sense of reality starts to split at the edges. At school, Irina took one look at me and whispered, "You saw something again, didn't you?" I just nodded. When I told her about the mirror, her expression twisted in a way I hadn't seen before. Fear, but also guilt. "I should have told you this earlier," she said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "This isn't the first time it's happened." "What do you mean?" "There was another American here years ago. His name was Zach. He was part of the same program." "And?" "He disappeared. People say he went into the monastery and never came out. His host family left the village after that." "Did he get the same warnings?" "He got something worse," she said quietly. He got dreams, just like yours. After school, I begged Irina to take me somewhere private. We went to an old, unused classroom on the second floor, windows boarded, door stiff from disuse. There, she opened her backpack and pulled out a notebook. The cover was worn, stained, and barely holding together. "I found this in the old library storage," she whispered. "I wasn't supposed to take it. It belonged to Zach." She handed it to me. The first page had a name scribbled in bold letters: Zachary M. Talbot, Fall Exchange 2008. My stomach dropped. I flipped through the pages, sketches of the monastery, descriptions of dreams, diagrams of the chapel. He had drawn the mirror over and over again with one note underlined repeatedly: "It sees when you see." Another page read, Day 3. Heard my name in the hallway again. Do not respond, do not turn. Day 4. Irina's brother missing, same as the others. Chapel smells like wet ash. I stopped. "Irina, you had a brother." Her face froze. I did. She turned away, and for a moment I thought she might cry, but she didn't. He was one of the students who disappeared in 2008. He was 17. He and Zach were friends. They both went missing within the same week. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because if I speak of him too much, I dream of him. And when I dream of him, he speaks with the wrong voice." Later that evening, back at the house, I found myself staring at my own reflection again. I didn't want to, but something about it was magnetic. Like if I could just understand it, look deep enough, I'd find answers. The reflection didn't smile this time. Instead, it moved differently. It blinked slower, tilted its head too far to the side. Its pupils were so dilated that they almost swallowed the color of the eyes. I waved my hand. It waved back, just a second late. Then, without warning, the light in my room flickered and went out. I reached for the lamp, heart racing. In that split second of darkness, I saw it. A face right behind me in the mirror. Pale, hollow-eyed, grinning. It wasn't mine. The light came back on. The room was empty. The next morning, someone else was gone. Matej, one of the quieter boys in class, always sat near the back, always scribbling things in his notebook. "Did anyone see him yesterday after school?" Professor Chorin asked. No one answered. I turned to Irina. "Do you think it's connected?" She nodded grimly. "That makes 3. By now the school had changed. People whispered in corners. Teachers exchanged uneasy glances. Even the principal had started locking the back doors that led toward the monastery wing. Not that it helped. Those doors opened on their own now, every night. That day after classes, I returned to the library alone. I needed more answers. The article from the 70s had to be part of something larger. And if Zach had disappeared in 2008, there had to be a pattern. I dug through old records, found school attendance logs, staff memos, newspaper clippings. That's when I noticed something chilling. Every 10 years, since 1961, 5 people had gone missing at this school. Always within the same month, always around November. It was now November 3rd, and 3 people were already gone. I brought the evidence to Irina. She stared at the timeline I'd drawn, eyes wide. "This is a ritual," I said. "It's not random, it's structured. It's fed." Fed? To something in the monastery, something that needs 5. She looked physically ill. "What happens after 5? "I don't know," I said. "Maybe it sleeps. Maybe it resets. Or maybe it chooses new ones," she said darkly. That night, I heard whispering inside my closet. It was faint at first, just scratches and the occasional shift of cloth, but then words. "Day 3, Tyler. You looked too long. You listened." I pressed my back against the wall, covering my ears. It didn't help. "We are the echoes.
We are the shape beneath the flesh. We are what you saw in the glass. I turned on music, loud, but the whisper continued beneath it. You can't drown a voice that lives inside your blood. At dawn, I found another note under my pillow, just like before. This one read, "The fourth won't be chosen. The fourth will be taken. And if the fifth follows willingly, the door will stay open forever." I skipped school that day. Instead, I walked around the edge of the village, trying to clear my mind, but something kept gnawing at me, the phrasing of the note. If the fifth follows willingly, who would be fifth? Was it me? Or worse, was it Irina? I returned to the Mihailuscu house around 3 p.m. to find Irina crying on the front porch. What happened? She handed me her phone, a message from an unknown number, a video. I pressed play. The video was grainy, night vision, but it showed a figure walking into the chapel. And there, behind the altar, the mirror. The figure turned. Even in the poor light, I could see who it was. Matei. But it wasn't just him. His face was stretched inhumanly wide, his mouth open too far. And when he reached the mirror, he stepped into it. Not through, into. Like water, gone. Irina clutched my arm. It's hunting again, and it's faster now. I looked up at the hills beyond the monastery. The fog had begun to roll down earlier than usual. Thicker, heavier, almost like it was alive.
That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the video. The way Matei just stepped into the mirror like it was liquid. How his body folded unnaturally as he vanished, and worst of all, how the figure inside the glass seemed to pull him in. I didn't tell the Mihălescus. I didn't sleep. I just waited for morning. By 7 a.m., I was back at the library. It wasn't open, but I'd stolen a copy of the key weeks ago after Professor Andre disappeared. Yeah, I know, bad idea. But something told me the answers weren't going to be given freely. I made my way to the archive room, turned on the reading lamp, and pulled out Zach's notebook again. There were pages I hadn't read yet, pages I hadn't noticed. They were sealed inside the back cover, behind a layer of fabric. I peeled it away carefully. Underneath, in a trembling hand, Zach had written, "If you're reading this, you've seen the mirror. If you've seen the mirror, it already knows you." My blood ran cold. It calls itself Reflex. That's not a name. It's a condition. It exists as your opposite, a shadow tethered to your soul. And it wants to be real. I kept reading. It needs 5. 1 to watch, 1 to listen, 1 to dream, 1 to follow, and 1 to offer. When the 5th offers themselves willingly, the door opens forever. The barrier between reflection and reality breaks. I've seen it. I've seen what lives on the other side of the glass. I stopped. My hands were shaking. You will start to lose time. Your voice will echo before you speak. You'll dream while you're awake. That's when it's inside you. That's when you need to decide, do you run or do you offer? I slammed the notebook shut. I didn't want to read more, but I knew I would. I had to. Back at school, I found Irina near the courtyard. I pulled her aside and showed her the sealed pages. She stared at them like they were cursed. "That word," she said, pointing to reflex. "I've heard it before, in my brother's journal. He used to call it the reverse self." I paused. "Your brother had a journal too?" She nodded. "But my parents burned it, said it brought bad dreams." She looked up at me, eyes wide, scared. I remember one entry, though. He wrote, "When it starts smiling with your mouth, don't smile back." Third period was interrupted by screaming. We were halfway through math when a girl from the lower grade burst in, sobbing uncontrollably. "Christian, he's not answering. He locked himself in the art room and he won't come out." The teachers ran down the hall. Irina and I followed. By the time we got there, the door was already open. Inside, paint was smeared across the walls in thick, messy strokes. But it wasn't random. It was words, hundreds of them. Over and over, Christian had written, "I see me, I 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 see me." He was gone. Another one taken. That made 4. One to watch, one to listen, one to dream, one to follow. Only one left, and I had a sick feeling I knew exactly who that would be. After school, Irina and I went back to the monastery. We knew it was stupid, we knew it was dangerous, but whatever was happening wasn't slowing down. It was accelerating. As we stepped into the chapel, everything felt heavier. The air, the silence, even the light. The mirror stood in the same place. The velvet cloth was now gone. There was no point hiding it anymore. And this time, the glass wasn't black. It was reflecting. But not just us. The room behind us was different in the mirror. The pews were full of people, but their faces were blank. Their heads turned slowly toward us in the reflection, in perfect sync. And then one of them stood. It looked like me, but taller, thinner. Its mouth stretched unnaturally wide, and when it smiled, the teeth inside were wrong, jagged, gray. It raised one hand and knocked on the inside of the glass. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed in the chapel, even though nothing had touched the real mirror. Irina pulled me back. "We need to go, now." That night, I had a waking dream. I was standing in the chapel, alone. The mirror wasn't there anymore. Instead, there was a doorway. Behind it, endless corridors made of glass. And inside every pane, someone was screaming. Some of them were my classmates. Some of them were me. Reflections, trapped. I heard the entity's voice, my voice, distorted and deep. "You were born with the door inside your soul. We are only here to open it." I woke up at 3:33 a.m. Again. Same time as every night. There was something standing at the foot of my bed. I didn't look. I couldn't. But I heard it whisper, "Offer. Tyler. Or we'll choose her instead." In the morning, I found another note. This one wasn't under my pillow. It was inside my school locker, folded perfectly, written in the same shaky ink. "The fifth always chooses. One soul for silence, or many for the scream."
By the time the next day rolled around, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. I'd stopped trusting my reflection. Every mirror, every window, screen, or puddle was suspect. I saw it twitching, blinking out of sync, grinning when I wasn't. The thing inside the glass was getting closer.
And the voice, it hadn't left since that night. "Offer, Tyler. Offer, or she's next." I skipped school and went back to the monastery alone. Irina had begged me not to, but I knew this was bigger than both of us now. The mirror was waiting for me, always in the same spot, like it had grown roots into the stone. This time, I brought Zach's notebook and a hammer. I stood before the glass, staring at myself, or whatever was pretending to be me. It didn't copy me perfectly anymore. It blinked slower, moved like it was underwater, like it was watching me through layers of space I couldn't understand. I raised the hammer, ready to smash it, end this. But just before I swung, my reflection spoke. "You're not the fifth." The words didn't come from my mouth. They came from the mirror. I froze. My chest felt like it was caving in. The world around me slowed. "What you mean?" I whispered. The reflection smiled wider. Its teeth cracked as it did. "You were never the offering, Tyler. You are the door." My hand slipped from my grip. Then the glass rippled, not like breaking, like liquid, and a hand reached through. My own hand. It touched my chest gently, and then pushed. I should have fallen back, but instead I fell inward. The world flipped, colors inverted, sound reversed, and I was inside the mirror. I landed hard. The monastery chapel was still around me, but wrong. Everything was mirrored, inverted. The pews were on the ceiling. The crucifix was upside down. The stained glass leaked blood instead of light. And I wasn't alone. Hundreds of versions of me stood silently across the space, all frozen, all watching. Some had missing eyes. Some had mouths stitched shut. Some looked like they'd been trapped here for years, their skin translucent, their hair falling out in clumps. They were all Tyler, but not me. A low hum filled the space, like an old fridge or a choir breathing in. Then the central altar cracked open like a mouth, and from it, reflex crawled out. It wore my face, but stretched thin like wet cloth. Its voice echoed in my head, in my bones, in the marrow of my teeth. "The fifth has offered." I shook my head. "I didn't offer anything." "No," it whispered, walking slowly toward me, "but she did." That's when I saw her, Irina, standing just inside the mirror's veil, back in the real world, tears on her cheeks, one hand stretched toward the glass. She had followed me. She had spoken my name. She had invited me back. She had offered herself. Reflex turned its head, bones popping with the motion. "She broke the seal. She called you back, and now she is ours." I ran through the mirrored chapel, past the frozen versions of myself, through warped hallways and shifting stairs made of reflections and screams. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to find a way back. Then I heard a voice. Not Reflex. Zach's. Clear. Human. Terrified. "The exit is the moment you regret." It didn't make sense until I remembered the first time I ever saw the mirror. I had smiled at it, mocked it, dared it to scare me. That was the moment, the mistake.
the one I had to undo. I stopped running, turned, faced one of the frozen versions of myself, the one closest to that memory. He looked up slowly. Our eyes met, and I whispered, "I'm sorry." The mirror cracked, just a hairline fracture, but it was enough. The world began to suck itself inward, like a collapsing star. Reflex screamed. It wasn't a sound. It was everything, shattering in my ears, bleeding into my brain. And suddenly, I was back. I crashed onto the chapel floor, blood in my ears, smoke rising from the mirror. And Irina was gone. I searched for hours, called her name 100 times, but the monastery was silent, and the mirror was just glass again. I stumbled back to the Mihailescu's house in a daze. They didn't ask where I'd been. They just handed me a letter. It was from Irina, written in a shaky hand, just like Zach's. "Tyler, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I knew you'd go alone. I knew you'd try to stop it. So I followed. And now it's me or you. Please don't come back for me. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Just remember, it only wins if you forget. Never stop looking over your shoulder. Never stop checking the mirror." I sat there for hours, reading the letter again and again. And when I finally looked up, the TV screen was on. I hadn't touched it. Static. Then, a flicker. Irina's face. Just for a second. Mouth moving. But the sound was backwards. I grabbed the remote, rewound, played it again in reverse. Her voice clear. "Help me."
It's been 3 days since Irina disappeared. 3 days since I escaped the mirror world. 3 days since I realized I was no longer alone inside my own head. I can still hear her voice through screens, mirrors, glass, even puddles on the ground. "Help me, Tyler." Sometimes she sounds like herself. Other times, like something is wearing her voice. I stopped sleeping. I stopped talking to the Mihailescus. They knock on my door, leave food, pray loudly outside the room. They think I've been possessed. And maybe they're right. Because every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that chapel. But last night, something changed. I was watching the reflection in my bedroom window. Just watching. Waiting. And instead of my face, or reflexes, or Irina's, I saw Zach. His reflection smiled and said 2 words. "Trapdoors open." I didn't wait until sunrise. I grabbed the mirror shard I'd hidden under my bed, the one I broke off the monastery's glass the day I came back, taped it to the inside of my palm like a blade, packed my flashlight, Zach's notebook, and my phone, and I went back to the monastery, to the chapel, to the place where the walls breathe and prayers curdle in your throat. This time, the mirror didn't resist me. It was already warm, already pulsing, waiting. I didn't touch it. It swallowed me whole. I landed in darkness, not the chapel,
Not even the same dimension. It felt like being inside a throat, wet, organic, pulsing. The air smelled like burnt hair and old coins. Then the walls lit up. Lines of names began glowing along the inside of the walls, carved in symbols I couldn't read, but I understood. Zach, Tyler, Irina, Jules, Serena, and beneath them a new one forming. Tyler times 2. A voice laughed in the dark. Welcome back, door. Reflex. But not ahead of me. All around me, like I had walked into its mouth. I ran, again, but the floor moved under me like a treadmill of teeth. The space shifted, twisted, rearranged, and suddenly I was standing in front of a hallway lined with mirrors. Dozens of them, each showing a different version of my life. One showed me never coming to Romania. One showed me kissing Irina under the chapel's stained glass. One showed me holding her hand as we ran from something huge and crawling behind us. But one showed her screaming, clawing at the glass. Alone. I didn't hesitate. I smashed that mirror with my taped shard and jumped through. I landed on concrete, the old hallway of the monastery's lower floor. Cold, damp, familiar. For a second, I thought I'd done it, that I'd come out the other side, back into reality, back to Irina. But I heard the laughter, and I knew this wasn't real. She was standing at the end of the hallway, Irina, but her smile was wrong, too wide, too still. Her eyes were bleeding from the corners, not tears, but tiny threads. And she spoke with a voice that was hers, but not human. You should have stayed out, Tyler. I backed away. This wasn't her. It was a copy. A lure. Then she lunged. I turned and ran, bursting through the door at the end of the hall, and landed in the school dorms. Only now they were twisted. Beds lined the ceiling. Lockers breathed in and out. And the walls were covered in pictures of me. Me sleeping, me crying, me bleeding. One showed me dead. I had to keep moving. Every door I opened led to a new nightmare. The library, books whispering my name. The cafeteria, filled with students eating black sludge from their own skulls. The classroom, where the chalkboard read, "Offer her, or we take you both." Then I found the music room. Silent. Still. And sitting at the piano was Irina. The real one. I knew it. I could feel it. She looked up at me with tired eyes. "Tyler?" I ran to her, grabbed her hand. It was warm, solid. She was real. But before we could speak, 100 versions of me walked into the room, each more decayed than the last. Some with no eyes, some with sewn mouths, some crawling, some floating, all staring, all me. And in unison, they said, "Trade, trade, trade." Irina stood. "I think they want me to take your place." I shook my head. "I came to get you out." You can't save both of us. Yes, I can. I pulled out the notebook, open to the page Zach had marked with blood. A ritual. Not to break the seal, but to split it. She read my mind. Together, we chanted the lines. Our voices shook the room. The mirrors cracked. The air screamed. And the versions of me began to fall apart like sand blown away. But Reflex didn't scream. It laughed. Good. You've made it worse. And then everything went black. When I woke up, we were back. In the real monastery chapel. At least, I think it was real. Irina lay beside me, unconscious but breathing. The mirror was gone. Just a wall now. The Mihailescus found us hours later. They cried, they prayed, they told us the monastery had burned down overnight while we were inside. But we didn't see fire. Just darkness. It's been 2 weeks. Irina and I don't talk about what happened. Not out loud. We just look at each other when the TV glitches, or when the mirror fogs unnaturally, or when we hear the sound of piano keys in the middle of the night. Something followed us back.
If I could show you my reflection right now, you'd understand why I don't look in mirrors anymore. It's not just about fear, it's about control, because something inside them, inside me, is learning how to look back. Irina's been quiet since the monastery. She's still with the Mihailescus, who keep blessing her forehead with crosses made of salt and oil. They say she's been touched by something between God and shadow. They don't know the half of it. As for me, I moved out of their house, took the attic above the school gym. No mirrors, no windows, just wood, dust, and silence. It's the only place I feel almost sane. Almost. It started with the television. I wasn't even watching it. It was off. But one night the black screen began to fog, like something was breathing on the other side. Then fingerprints. Tiny at first, then larger. Human. They moved from inside the glass, tracing patterns I didn't understand, until one night the letters became words. Let us finish. The next day I smashed the TV. But it didn't stop there. Screens, puddles, glass in picture frames, even someone's glasses. I saw myself blink when I wasn't blinking, smile when I wasn't smiling, and I swear to you, in the reflection of a broken phone screen, I watched myself die. I tried telling Irina. She just stared at me, then whispered, "They followed us back, Tyler, but they're not whole. They're feeding." Feeding on what? She looked down. Us. We decided to test it. She filled the bathtub with water. We both stood over it, stared into the reflection. At first, just our own faces. Then, slowly, the background behind us began to change. No longer the bathroom, but the chapel. And not empty. Standing there, behind our reflections, a woman in white, head tilted, mouth stitched shut with black thread. Then, she reached out. The water rippled, and Irina screamed. We backed away, and the image vanished, but it left something behind. A fingerprint, pressed on the surface of the water, not ours. We don't sleep much now. The air feels thinner, like reality is stretching, like we're walking on glass and every step could shatter it. And there's something else. The people in town have started acting wrong. First was Mr. Petru, the janitor. He always smiled at us, always offered candy to the students, a kind old man. But last Tuesday we found him in the boiler room, staring into the metal panel of the furnace, muttering, "She's almost awake. She needs more mouths." When we tried to talk to him, he turned, and his eyes were mirrors. I mean that literally. Tiny, polished mirrors. I saw myself inside them, not moving, just watching. Then there was Elena, one of Irina's classmates. She cornered Irina in the bathroom, grabbed her wrist and whispered, "If you leave, she'll never let you go. If you stay, you'll become her." Then Elena slammed her own head into the sink over and over until the mirror cracked. They say she's in a coma now, but Irina says she saw her whispering through the window at the hospital. We're being hunted, but not like in movies. There's no monster crawling on the ceiling, no demon with a knife. This thing, Reflex, is a system, a hive, and it's using us as its interface. Last night I got a message, not a call, not a text, a reflection. In the window above my bed, words formed in the condensation. Midnight, chapel, alone. Irina begged me not to go, but I had to, because I think I know what it wants. It's not just about feeding, it wants to merge. It's using the cracks in the mirror, in our minds, to build a new dimension stitched together from ours and theirs. And the final ritual starts tonight. So I went, back to the ruins of the monastery, now just scorched stone and blackened earth. But as the clock struck midnight, the mirror wall returned, perfect, whole, reflective, and behind it, Zach. He looked older, pale, but alive. He pressed his palm to the glass. I did the same, and I heard him speak, not aloud, inside my head. "You can still stop her, but you have to find the first mirror, the one she was born from." I asked where, and he pointed, down. The ground beneath my feet opened, not with fire, not with screams, just silence, like falling into a forgotten prayer. I dropped for what felt like hours, and when I landed, I was no longer in Romania. I wasn't in any country. It was a space made entirely of reflection. Walls, floors, ceiling, all mirrors. Except they didn't show me. They showed every version of me that had ever died. And at the center, a throne of bones. And on it, her, the lady in white, the first mirror. She opened her eyes. They were not human. They were polished, deep, infinitely empty. She spoke, and the world around her trembled. "You brought her. Now I only need one more." "Who?" I asked. She smiled and pointed. "Behind me." I turned and saw her. She had followed me through. Of course she had. And now she stood face to face with the thing we'd been running from. The lady rose from her throne and said, "Choose. The one who stays becomes me. The other forgets." And I knew what she meant. One of us had to remain in the mirror, as an anchor, a vessel. The other would be free, but would lose all memory of the truth, lose each other, lose everything. I stepped forward. "I'll stay." But Irina pushed me back. "No, Tyler, you already died in there once. Let me do this." We shouted, begged, fought, until the lady grew tired of our indecision. She raised her hand,
and the mirrors began to shatter. Each shard fell like a snowflake. Each one showed a different future, some happy, some horrible. And then everything went dark. I woke up in the Mihailescu's house, alone. The mirror was gone. The monastery was gone. Irina was gone. And I couldn't remember why, until I looked in the puddle outside the window and saw her waving back.
Have you ever woken up in a place you don't recognize, looked around and wondered, is this my life or someone else's I've just been imitating? I've asked myself that question every day since Irina disappeared. She's gone. No records of her at the school, no photos on my phone. The Mihailescus don't remember ever hosting anyone but me. When I ask about her, they just smiled politely and say, "You spent a long time alone in those mountains, Tyler. It's normal to dream up imaginary friends." But I know she was real. I know because I still see her. In the bakery mirror, between reflections of baguettes and sleepy customers. In the chrome faucet handles at the school, where her hair sometimes clings, her eyes begging for help. In the bus windows, like she's sitting behind me, in another world. And sometimes I see myself with her, laughing, walking with her through the woods, or watching her sleep. But not through my own eyes, through the eyes of something inside the reflection. Reality's been blurring. Little things started shifting. My school ID badge changed from Tyler Modson to Tyler Madalin, and no one batted an eye. My passport? Romanian. My accent? Fluent. Even my face. It aged or morphed. Like someone's been replacing me piece by piece, reshaping me to fit the story of another world. The only thing that hasn't changed is the mirror in the boys' locker room. The oldest one on campus, cracked but still reflective. And it's there that the truth whispers. The other day, the glass was fogged, even though the room was dry. One message was scrawled in the condensation. "You are the final piece." And below it, "She is already inside you." I tried to ignore it, tried to teach, to eat, to pretend. But then the students started disappearing. First Costin, a quiet 12-year-old. Then Anna Maria, the girl who painted her dreams. Her paintings were left behind. They all shared one theme, a mirror with a woman in white crawling out of it, smiling with more and more teeth each time. The police came, searched the school, nothing. But the mirrors, they started to shimmer. One night I woke to a sound from the school gym just beneath my room. I grabbed a flashlight and went. The place was empty, but the old mirror in the locker room was glowing from behind, like it had a bulb inside the glass. And I saw Irina, not crying, not trapped, but seated on a throne of bones, dressed in white, like the creature we'd faced. She smiled and spoke in my voice. "You left me there. Now we are one." I woke up on the floor, blood running from my nose. No mirror on the wall, but my eyes, they reflected light, like polished glass. I tried to run, packed my bags, took a train to Cluj-Napoca, tried buying a plane ticket back to the U.S. But at the kiosk, the woman just chuckled. "Mr. Madalin, you've never left Romania. Your visa's local. Your tax ID too.
Your DNA is in the National Registry. You are one of us." I showed her my American passport. She scanned it. Red light. Fake. Very well made, but fake. I panicked and fled the station. And that's when I noticed no one had a reflection anymore. Not in store windows, not inside mirrors, not in puddles. Only me. They were empty. Or maybe already absorbed. I ran to the lake, where the water's surface runs deep and black. I knelt and looked down, and I saw Irina in the depths, wearing her school uniform, smiling. She held out her hand, and behind her, my whole family. My mom, my dad, Zach, my students, all of them silent, waiting. "This is where you always belonged, Tyler." The words didn't come from the water. They came from inside my mind, but they were spoken with her voice. I squeezed my eyes shut, tried to remember what Zach had said back in the mirror world. If she gets in, the world becomes a door. And that's what's happening. She got in, and now the world around us is turning into a threshold. No longer physical, no longer constant, but fluid, reflective, bendable. And now I am the carrier, the final mirror. I felt the water touch me without contact, like the lake itself breathed. Then came whispers in hundreds of tongues, all telling me the same thing. Accept us, and you'll be free. There is no world beyond us. I ran back to the school, found every mirror, shattered them all, until only one remained, the locker room mirror. I stood before it for hours, waiting, and eventually she appeared. Not as a ghost, not as Irina, but as me. Perfectly identical. Same movements, same face, but the eyes hollow. And he spoke. "The story ends when you stop resisting, when you accept that you died in that school, and this is just your reflection trying to remember who you were." He smiled and raised a knife, the same one I used on that mountain trail 2 years ago, but this time pointed at me. And then the glass fractured. It started to pull, first the lights, then the sounds, then time. Everything became white, weightless, shapeless, like the story itself couldn't hold together anymore. And when I thought it was over, when I gave in, I woke up in a hospital. Clean clothes, a smiling nurse, a mirror by my bed. No trauma records, no criminal files. "You had a nervous breakdown," they said. I had gone missing for 3 months, found dehydrated in a forest near a monastery ruins. No trace of reflex, no Irina, nothing. But now you understand why I don't look into mirrors, why I don't trust this place to be real. Because every night, when my bedroom window fogs up, I see the same message. You chose to forget, we didn't. And sometimes, just before I fall asleep, I see someone in the glass, someone with my face, but who never blinks.
It's been 6 months since I was discharged from the hospital. I changed cities, changed my name, changed my language. Now I go by Tomas. I teach art in a small school where every mirror is covered in black cloth. I tell people it's a cultural tradition. They believe me, but I know the truth. Sometimes I hear soft tapping from inside my locker's mirror, Or I catch movement in the reflection of a spoon, even when I'm alone. I've learned not to look for more than a second. That's all she needs, a second. Because Irina, or whatever she became, never left. She waits, somewhere between glass and shadow, hunting those who still remember. A few days ago, one of my students asked me, "Sir, why do all your portraits have no eyes?" I smiled, said something vague about form and absence. But the truth is, eyes reflect, and any reflection, no matter how small, can open the door. Last night, the bathroom mirror cracked by itself. No wind, no movement. And for a split second, I saw all of them. Zach, my classmates, Irina, and myself. Trapped, but smiling. Now I sleep with all the lights on. I cover the faces in my paintings, not because I'm afraid of seeing her again, but because I'm terrified I won't. That one day I'll look into a mirror and realize she's already out, and maybe I never left.